Whatever you're grateful for, you tend to attract more of. And so staying in that attitude of that attitude of gratitude.
Them sound like preacher bullet points.
Lord have mercy. But staying in that sort of posture of gratitude for everything keeps you in check sometimes, when we all need a little reality check. But it really facilitates more coming in, more of what you love, more of what you love to do. If you're grateful for being able to pay your bills, then maybe at next year at this time you're able to pay your bills and give some away, or so gratitude becomes the great multiplier.
What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Kropf, and I just want to tell you on the front end that today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to necessarily talk about a production music topic. We're not going to talk about contracts and sync, and I'm not going to tell you all about 52 Qs and how you can subscribe. Instead, I want to welcome a very special guest back to the program, my most favorite person in the world, Mrs. 52 Qs, Shannon Kropf, and we are going to be talking about gratitude, grace, and forgiveness. Shannon, welcome to the podcast. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much. It's always awesome to get to do this with you. And really just it's an extension of the conversations that we have every day, hanging out. You're my best friend. So cool.
Yeah. I know it sounds like super cheesy and, a Hallmark after school special, marry your best friend.
But special blossom.
Yeah, I know. And this does feel like a very special episode, But no, as this is coming out, it is Thanksgiving Day here in the U.S. And I just want to take a moment and talk about what we are grateful for, what Shannon and I are very thankful for. Now, at the beginning of every episode, I say a special thanks to our family, friends, neighbors, and patrons who all keep the lights on, and that's all well and good. And absolutely, I thank them for their financial contributions, but also the community at large. When I say none of this would be possible, that's not a lie. It's not a lie. It's one thing, to get subscribers and all of that, but the support financially and the support spiritually, emotionally, philosophically, that folks are just putting positivity into the community, and it makes it all absolutely worth it. So I just want to say, just on the front end, whether you're a paying subscriber or not, whether you're a YouTube subscriber or you're listening on the podcast, a member of the community or an OG member of the Facebook group, thank you. I am so grateful for you, because really none of this would be possible without your help.
And Dave, when we first started out to grow this thing out of the Facebook community coming onto Midi Networks, we decided right at the beginning, and you just touched on this, so I just wanted to say something else about it. We decided right at the beginning that we weren't going to chase the algorithms. We weren't going to, do some of the weird things that you can do to get 10,000 subscribers in 12 minutes and, all that business.
Right.
And we decided that we were just going to be authentic and be who we are. And so it's really amazing to see that grow into this beautiful community that we have, where I've never seen such a positive online space. Usually somebody gets loose and does damage.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
So I just want to thank everybody who also on my heart is thanking everybody for being amazing and really making this a special place. It's just not like anything else I've seen, especially in the production music space.
Yeah, and it's really easy to take kind of for granted what the community that we have going on here and the folks who come into the community because it's our people, right?
It's our
But
tribe.
going into our tribe, 100%, and going into some other communities, and you realize it just feels a little bit different, But being community focused first,
Hmm.
being generous, and having a foundation of generosity of, hey, together we are better. And I think it's reflected in the community.
I think so,
I
yeah.
deliberately try to keep negativity out of the podcast, waves episodes or Spitfire episodes
The
notwithstanding.
occasional flaming episode,
Right. The occasional rant,
notwithstanding.
which I know if it bleeds, it leads. To date, those are my highest downloaded.
I mean, there is the reality of the world we live in. However, it would be very easy to pander to that, and you're not doing that.
100%. I mean, I could easily just line up everything that makes me angry about the industry and probably get a lot of eyeballs.
Right.
If you're putting that out into the universe, then that's what you're going to attract. So
Sure.
if we want a community of super negative, cynical people, then
angry people.
yeah, angry, unhappy with everything, then I should line up all of those videos and make them. But I believe in positivity and in paying it forward and putting light out into the universe. I don't know if that's too woo-woo for you, out there listening, but I really believe that it's going to be reflected into the people that you attract.
Sure.
As within, so without, right? So whatever is inside you and whatever you put out there, that is what's going to come back.
And just to make you feel a little bit better, every time I think, oh my God, is that too woo-woo? Is this so out there? I go back to quantum physics. The idea of spooky action at a distance, that an atom on Earth can be entangled with an atom 500 light years away, and when something happens to this, it happens to it's like there's a whole level of how our universe works that we're only just beginning to tap into. And that's super exciting. So just the idea that there's some energetic stuff going on that we can't necessarily see with our eyes, but that we feel the ramifications of.
And I think that happens in the community. I mean, we have community quantum entanglements with folks from India.
It's true.
Tokyo, Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Orlando, right? Las Vegas, Denver, Memphis, LA, all over the world. And we all come together in mutual support of one another. And it really is a special thing. And I just wanted to pause today to acknowledge that and to express my most sincere, deep, deep gratitude for you. You, Shannon, yes, but the capital
me.
U, the audience.
I thought you meant for us all.
No,
thank you.
But speaking of Shannon, I must take a moment to express my thanks to my partner in life. We will be celebrating 30 years marriage next year. Yep. We've been together since the dawn of the Clinton administration. Literally, our first date was November 2nd, 1992, which was Election Day.
Right.
And wow, I can't imagine doing life without you.
No way.
And for you listeners, we have a little staff meeting, me and Shannon, a little 2-person staff meeting every Monday morning. And practically at the end of every meeting, we look at each other and we say, I am so glad we get to do this together. Because, we've spent our entire life. I mean, I'll be 50 in about a month. You're, I don't want to say how old you are. It's not polite, but
I am approximately that age.
And so, I mean, we're both, hovering around, half century mark, and we've spent 35 years in pursuit of somebody else's dream.
That's
really.
right.
Supporting somebody else's vision, somebody
Yep.
else's dream, the thing that they wanted to manifest into the universe. We have spent our entire adult life in
Hmm.
service of those things. I mean, not with regret. It's just that's how it goes. You get a job, you
Right.
support somebody, whether it's at a school or whether it's at a print company or whatever. But for the first time within the last couple of years, since we launched 52 Qs formally in 2022, we're doing it for us and for you, listeners and viewers and members of
Yeah.
the 52 Qs community.
And it's not like the time that we spent building other people's dreams is wasted.
Mm,
Every situation, every relationship, every trial, every challenge, every success, every failure has molded us into the people that we are now. And so we're able to do what we are now because we came alongside other people along the way. I wish we had started when we were 20, but it's all good. What's the old proverb? The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now, you know?
right. The worst time is tomorrow.
Right. Exactly.
And I mean, well, the tech didn't exist 20 years ago. There's no way we could
Right.
have done the
No,
community that we
no.
did, that we're doing now.
I was just reminded watching Friends the other day, that when we started our musical journey and we were in the band in North Carolina together, we had a piece of paper that people wrote down their email addresses on, and we had to try to decipher them and type them in. And I, that is so, it's like another era, not just another century, because that was in the
Oh, yeah.
90s, but it was a whole different era in terms of the way we think about things. And so, as kind of crazy as the world is right now, it's a really cool time to be alive. And I'm grateful that we get to experience it.
Yeah, I'm still old enough to where I'm really impressed by the Internet of Things. Like,
Yes.
yeah, really, because I'm sitting here in a room in a room over garage in Orlando, Florida, having real time instant communications with somebody in India, and also somebody from Australia, and also somebody from Tokyo, and also somebody from Las Vegas. We're
It's
all in the
amazing.
same room, Zoom room. We're all talking in instant communication. And this still impresses me. I know,
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
a generation younger, you're like, that's how it is. But
We came up in that generation. We were in college when the internet became a thing. And when we were in college, you had to like log into Telnet and know how to get where you were going and how to find what you were looking for. You had to know addresses and go to specific, alt groups and all this
right.
kind of stuff. And so it's been fun to watch it happen.
It's like I'm not impressed by running water, but I imagine a generation before us who grew up without it. Every
Hmm.
time they turn on the faucet, they're like, guys, you
Ah,
you don't
you
understand
don't
what's
know.
happening here.
You don't know.
So when I have instant communications with somebody in Tokyo, and I'm just like looking at young folks, like, you don't even know. When my
I
dad was
had
a
to walk
Marine,
uphill both. I
yeah.
had to use a telephone to talk to somebody in Tokyo.
Oh, when my dad was a Marine, he was stationed in Okinawa, and we would talk to him once a week
Wow.
by phone, and we had to say over when we were done because it wasn't a two-way phone.
Right.
It was a radio, essentially. So I'm thankful for the technology. I'm
Yes.
thankful for the tools that we have in place, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful that folks kind of joined us for this journey.
Yeah.
The Facebook group started at the end. I think at the end of 2017 is when the
Wow.
Facebook group started. Yeah, and so 2018 and 19 and 20, we did this kind of weekly threads. That was the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of
Mm-hmm.
52 Qs was create a community where people can post their Qs and leave feedback for others, all in super supportive, welcoming, non-spammy kind of way. We're not hustle culture kind of vibe
Right.
to it, right?
Right.
Just post your Qs, get feedback. Very, very simple transaction. And 2017 was when that group started up. 3 years on Facebook. Now we're coming up on 2 years on Mighty Networks. And we're coming up on 150 podcast episodes, 3 years of the podcast. And it's kind of staggering,
Mhm.
right? I look back and think, wow, kind of how far we've come. I'm really excited about what's coming up in 2024. And at the end of this year, we are releasing our kind of year in review and looking forward. We have our town hall coming up. But man, I'm just so grateful to be able to do this. I'm grateful that we're in an industry that is open and sharing. We're not, in a cutthroat kind of industry. I mean, it can be cutthroat, but in my mind, folks who are attracted to production music are generally service minded anyway.
Right.
Because production music composers don't get your name up in lights. You're never
Mhm.
going to go, and accept an Academy Award with John Williams on the front row, right? That's probably not going to be. And if you do, it's not for, a cue you got placed on toddlers and tiaras.
Right.
But so much of our life is kind of in the background, behind the
Mhm.
scenes, making a little bit of inroads, building your career slowly in service of somebody else telling their story. And I think that attracts a certain kind of person, right? It's like the bass players and the drummers, and I mean like in a band, bass players and drummers are always like in the back of the stage
They're not the
helping
front man,
support. Right, exactly.
except for Phil Collins.
Right. Yeah. The Beatles, Paul McCartney notwithstanding. But for the most part, we help other people tell our stories.
Mhm.
And that is a service industry,
Mhm.
ultimately.
Right.
Artisans make their things and somebody else use them. And so the community attracts that. And so I'm super
Mhm.
grateful for the folks who've come into the community. I'm grateful for Mighty Networks and everything we have happening over there. It's not without its challenges, but I'm grateful that people have grace for us.
Mhm.
They have grace for us as we try new things and see if it works,
Sure.
see if it doesn't work. Let's try a
Sure.
cue review and now let's call it ready for sync. Let's try it and just let's get on my motorcycle and let's make a video about that. Let's create all of these things in service of other people to help them grow their career.
And, just to pivot a little bit into the concept of gratitude and what that does, as you cultivate gratitude in your life, my friend says it becomes the great multiplier.
Mm,
Whatever you're grateful for, you tend to attract more of. And so staying in that attitude of oh God, that attitude of gratitude.
them sound like preacher bullet points.
Lord have mercy.
Uh,
But staying in that sort of posture of gratitude for everything keeps you in check sometimes, when we all need a little reality check. But it really facilitates more
mm,
coming in, more of what you love, more of what you love to do. If you're grateful for being able to pay your bills, then maybe at next year at this time you're able to pay your bills and give some away or
mm.
so gratitude becomes the great multiplier. And you just mentioned grace, and everywhere I looked to kind of I feel like I know what grace is, but I wanted to sort of look and find a definition or
Yeah.
and it was always um a kind gesture or feeling or emotion without merit, meaning that I don't have to do anything to deserve it. And so, as you start to talk about grace, that gets into this whole forgiveness thing, which I know we're going to spend a minute on as well. But grace and gratitude seem to me to be the same two sides of the same coin, at least, where, if I'm grateful for something, I also have a lot of grace in that area, you know? Working with students at Full Sail, for instance, there are every month there are 20 different things that go wrong for 20 different people and they need an extension or they need this or that or the other. And I can look at that as, oh my God, why can't people turn in their work on time? I can have that attitude towards it, or I can be grateful for these students and which leads to grace for their situations. not to the point of being like, yeah, just turn in whatever you want, whatever you want, everything's fine. But dealing with people in such a way that it affirms who they are and who you are, and just walking in a very specific kind of respect for one another.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, as instructors and educators and professors, blah blah, whatever, that folks understand kind of where you're coming from. Like just this week, I had to send to our briefing room folks. It was a grumpy email, and I said in it, not an email, but a post like, okay, guys, we're missing some details, right? You're submitting this for round one of a brief, and I need to provide feedback, but I'm not getting what I'm asking for. And so I even put like a little GIF of grumpy
Grumpy
cat,
cat.
right? Like to kind of soften the blow. And I made sure to communicate, hey, this is what we need to do, and this is why we need to do it. And so
Mhm.
the grace part comes in assuming that everybody wants the same thing.
Well,
Like,
and assuming the best intentions on everybody's
right.
part, even if they screw up. Well, they probably screwed up trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. No, like a student missing an assignment or missing, they turned something in. And
Mhm.
so that might be the victory. And I've
Right.
talked about on one of my
Right.
moto vlogs about having grace in traffic. I don't think
Yeah.
I actually use the word grace, but
Right.
when you slow down and let somebody into traffic, that's a moment of grace,
Right.
and which is ultimately for you, right? You're extending grace, but what you're
Right.
doing is you're releasing that
Right.
ick, that angsty bits. You're releasing that into the universe, and by doing that, you are de-escalating anxiety.
Mhm.
You are affording somebody the opportunity to have a better day. Like you're just making space for that.
Right.
And the benefit for me, like I slow down in traffic, not just because I'm an eternally nice guy. It's because I don't want to be a source of stress and anxiety in somebody else's world.
Right.
And by doing that, by not letting somebody in, somebody who is wrong, like we're in traffic, we're right, and somebody needs to merge in front of me, and the lane is ending, and they know it's ending. They saw the sign a mile back, and part of me could be like Captain America, like, no, I am right, sense of justice overload. I'm not going to let you in. And believe me, every time I have to tamp that down,
Yeah.
or I could just ease off the gas and let somebody in. Yes, they were wrong, and I am right, but the sense of being right comes at a cost, and a cost is some sort of confrontation or a moment of anxiety or stress. But when I
Right.
just let off the gas, let them in, extend some grace, because who knows, man, they might be having the worst day. They might
Right.
be late
If they're on
to,
I-4, they are having the worst day.
I mean, they might be late to a job interview that they need
Right.
so that they could
Right.
buy baby formula. I
Yeah.
don't know. And
Yeah.
knowing doesn't make it, that's not the point. So if I just let them go on, right, then like it feels like a win-win situation.
Sure. And, I wanna be careful in the way we talk about this, because being full of grace is not being a doormat.
Mm,
And so it's not always just, I don't count in this equation, whatever, let everybody else do whatever. There's a big component of grace that's compassion and empathy for others. And that's what you're saying when you're saying this person could be trying to get to a job interview, could have somebody in the hospital, we don't know. Or they could just be an asshole, whatever.
right?
Um, Maybe they are, who knows? Doesn't matter to me, because I'm still going to act with empathy and consideration and compassion for them. And where this really is helpful is in our careers and in our industry,
Yes.
because, yeah, people do sometimes miss deadlines, or, you know, um, I'm not a production music composer. I'm a live music director. And so I have lots and lots of in-face, one-on-one, um, artful dealings and conversations, whatever. And it's really, really easy to kind of just flip into production mode and like, no, we're not doing that. Shut up. You know, whereas if I've got my compassion and empathy feelers out in the room, I'm able to kind of make space, as you said, for whatever each person is going through. Now, does that make me a doormat? No. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I am full of grace for all people. And when I say, no, this is how this is going to be, people who know me understand that I mean that. I'm not just blowing smoke at, I'm not the hard ass just for the pleasure of being that. But when I say, no, this is how this is going to be, people take it seriously. So there's an old proverb that says, beware the anger of a patient man. And it's a little bit like that. Like if you know somebody who's very, very patient and they're getting angry, hold on, something's off. They've reached the end of their patience. So it's a little bit like that. If I've gotten to the point where we're at the end of grace, then there's been a lot going on there.
And I think that's kind of how it was received with the whole grumpy cat message from earlier this week. Because I think folks know my heart. They know that we're, I'm not gatekeeping anything. We're all here to get better, and we're all here to help forward our careers and get placements and all of that.
Yep.
And so they understood it. And I actually got some encouragement from some other folks in the community, because I did find myself kind of tripping over, like, oh, I'm so sorry, and being probably a little too wormy, just because I don't want it to ever come off like harsh. But like I mentioned in that message, I would much rather folks learn like these boundaries and these methods and procedures, and I would much rather them learn in this environment when it's kind of just me
and
versus
safe
out there. Yeah. Safe 100%, versus out there in the wild.
Right.
Where you might torch a relationship with, or torch your professional credibility.
Right. Right. By sending something in a wrong format or a wrong link or something like that, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it happens.
Because it absolutely happens. And so having grace with folks like professionally who may have, dare I say, wronged you. Like, let's say that you are working with somebody, and they make a mistake. They say something, they miss a deadline, having grace for them. And that leads me into our final topic, which is forgiveness. Having grace and understanding, empathy and compassion when somebody messes up or somebody, whatever, but also transitioning into a mindset of forgiveness. And I know me and you could talk for a whole other hour about situations that have arisen in our lives, but I want to bring up one specifically. So this would have been about 20 years ago or so. This was before we left North Carolina, which was before Memphis. Now, we've been in Florida going on 12 years. We were 11 years in Memphis. So, wow, 22 years, 23 years ago.
We went out to Memphis in summer 2001, right?
Yep. So I worked at a little startup company. And long story short, they got behind on payroll and bonuses that were promised to us. And at the end of the day, they owed me about $10,000. And I clung on to that. And this is how startups go sometimes, whatever. They ran out of venture capital and they ended up, missing payroll and stuff. So needless to say, I left and moved on to another company. But I held on to that $10,000 and I was like, they owe me $10,000. And even though I had mentally, like I wasn't expecting it anymore, and it's like our budget absorbed it and all of that, blah, blah. But in my mind, that company still owed me $10,000. And I was having breakfast with a friend. And I remember saying, telling him the story and said, well, it's all good. I've forgiven the debt, but it still owes me $10,000. And he stopped me, looked me dead in the eyes and said, you have not forgiven him. Because in my mind, forgiveness was like not expecting it. He goes, no, when you forgive that, you release it. They no longer owe you that money. And that was a real clear picture for me of what forgiveness is.
Yeah, and that story is the perfect illustration of something that it took me a while to realize, which is forgiveness is not about the other person at all.
Mm.
It has nothing to do with them changing behaviors or coming back to apologize or you owe me this. It is 100% to do with yourself. And what I mean by that is when you're like, well, I've forgiven them, but they still owe me $10,000. They're still living in your head. That's still a burden you're carrying around. You're like, here's this $10,000 they owe me. I'm going to carry it around and, take it with me everywhere I go. But when you release that, when you truly forgive, like, no, you don't owe me $10,000. It's done. It's over. Then you're the one putting the burden down, right?
Mm.
So that's not to say that you would go back into business with them necessarily, right? The one of the more damaging phrases is forgive and forget. Maybe not. You can forgive and still decide that that's enough of that, whatever it is, relationship or working relationship or whatever. And I forgive it and I bless it and cool, it's gone, moving on now. That doesn't mean you have to go run right back to that situation. Forgiveness doesn't equal like everything's great. I've got a couple of people from my past who are very, very dear to me who I hope they've forgiven me. I've forgiven them. We're not besties anymore. And that's okay. We've all grown and learned and we moved on. But so what it does is it really sets yourself free from carrying all of that crap around with you. Because as you were saying earlier, if we're going to try to keep this positive sort of mindset, we can't be, curling up in our blanket of grievance and then expecting to keep warm and be happy. It makes no sense. It's not energetically compatible.
Yeah, it's a holistic thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like gratitude, grace, forgiveness. For me, creativity and success and positivity. It's a whole system. It's a whole body, mind, spiritual system. And so if you're holding on to unforgiveness, and let's say, forgive and forget, it's more like forgive and bury the hatchet, right? Or don't hold a grudge.
Right.
Because forget means, like it gives them permission to kind of, if it's a toxic situation or abusive or whatever, you're not giving them permission to continue abusive behavior. What you are doing is that you're no longer holding on to that. And that's where I was. I had forgiven the debt, but I had held that grudge, which is a form of unforgiveness.
Sure.
Right. I wasn't expecting the $10,000, but they still wronged me. No. And so it's all connected. And I think if you have been hurt, whether it's professionally or personally, but professional hurt can really stick on you.
Ooh.
And we've worked in the church. Then you have like professional church hurt. Ooh, that will really stick on you.
Uh-huh.
And so when it comes time to push into something new and to try something, you have that still standing in your way. And so in this time, this season, whether you're in the US or not, there's a season of thankfulness, gratitude. Obviously, pause and consider what you're grateful for. But I would also encourage you to pause and consider, what are you holding on to which is keeping you from your truest gratitude? What is standing in the way between you and the next version of yourself, the next, I don't know if you want to say enlightened or whatever, but well, I will say lighter,
Mhm.
right? You're setting down things that you don't need to carry, and you will become a lighter person,
Yes.
and you will be. I've seen that, or I've heard like the saying that not forgiving somebody is like taking poison and expecting them to get sick,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
If you're holding on to unforgiveness, that's what it's like. The poison's in you, but you're expecting them to get sick because you're not forgiving them.
And, I know that it's very lovely for us to both sit here and go, "Oh, yeah, just forgive." It is difficult, and sometimes you need help with it. It's not something that you can just muddle through on your own, depending on what the situation is and how deeply it's affected you and whether or not this is gonna sound weird, whether or not you've b believed or taken on in your identity whatever this problem was. Sometimes these things go a little deeper than just, it's forgiven, it's gone.
Yeah.
And so you may need help from a therapist, and that's totally okay. There are professionals who know how to help you move through this. There's also my friend Cynthia Alice Anderson has a book called The Seven Spiritual Laws of Release. And she actually cites another lady. I think her name is Jane Elizabeth Hart. I hope I've gotten that right. And she has like a meditation where you go up 7 steps and it basically walks you through the situation or the relationship, celebrating what was good about it, understanding what was not optimal, and, moving you through until you can release these things. And so there are meditations on forgiveness out there if you're really wanting to jump in and do the work and get rid of some of this baggage. Good Lord, right? So I just no, it's not easy. We're not assuming that you'll be able to just, boom, forgiven, all is good. It's a serious thing, depending again on the depth of the hurt or the situation or whatever's going on.
Yeah, I mean, because you might be dealing with some real wounding, some
Mhm,
actual like legit trauma that needs
mhm.
help, and that's fine. And so, yeah, we're definitely not saying just gloss it over. I mean,
Right.
there is, on a scale of somebody cut me off in traffic, to abusive spouse, right? There's a big
There's a
giant.
spectrum.
It is a spectrum, and obviously here at 52 Qs, we keep things focused on production music and the professional side of things. But like I said earlier, it's all connected. If you how you treat yourself, how you eat, your exercise, how you get enough sleep, this all connects to your creativity, your creative process, your
Mhm.
output, your relationships with publishers, your relationships with your clients, your other composer friends, your family. Yeah, I can't step down from the studio and be a totally different person than at the dinner
Right,
table
right.
or at the office or walking the dog. You're the same person.
Yeah.
You might wear different hats and have different shades of character, but you're
Y
fundamentally the same person.
You know how I heard somebody put it? This was years ago, I'm not gonna get it right, but it's like, you're the same person. Sometimes you're wearing a tuxedo, and sometimes you're wearing pajamas, right? You're around the house having dinner, you're in your pajamas, or you're out with a group of people, you've got your tux on, you're a little more formal, but you're the same person. And I think
That's
that's a
right.
great way of looking at it, like, just different shades of the same
That's
person.
right. Which is why I'm totally fine talking about this kind of stuff. Now, we're not going to talk about, spirituality, woo-woo every single week here,
Nope.
but it's part of who I am.
Hmm.
It's part of this is not tuxedo Dave, or this isn't business hat Dave, but it's still Dave. And some of you might resonate with it. Some of you might not. And that's totally fine. It's completely fine.
It's okay.
But I think when we start from a place of gratitude, extending grace to those who, through empathy and compassion, and offering up forgiveness in places where we can and maybe should, then I believe that we will find ourselves even more creative, even more fulfilled professionally, personally, and we'll get to where we're going together. I firmly believe that. And part of, like what I say at the end of every episode, that the universe has amazing plans, that's connected to all of this. Mm-hmm. It's connected to all of this. So I'm thankful for you, viewers, listeners, Shannon. I'm very, very thankful for you. Thankful that you are part of my life. I'm thankful that you're on this journey with me. Again, I'm talking to Shannon and viewers, listeners, community.
And everybody.
It really is my pleasure to be with you on this journey and help out however I can. But I just want to thank you for being a part of this, and for your support, for subscribing, or just listening. This might be the first time you've ever heard of me. So we're going to return to our regularly scheduled podcast next week. We've got a really good episodes coming up, but thanks for joining us today. And remember that the universe really does have amazing plans just for you. Until next time, and I mean this, I send you out with peace. The 52 Qs podcast is copyright 2023 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community and submitting your cue for consideration on the podcast, head over to 52qs.com.